Bewitched wasn't just about spells and secret powers. It was about marriage, mischief, nosy neighbors, and the strange charm of trying to live a normal life when nothing was ever normal. But after the magic faded, time changed the faces behind this beloved sitcom. Some cast members, aged far from the spotlight, some lived difficult final years. Today, we look back at the cast of Bewitched, then and now, and see how life changed them after the magic disappeared. Dora was played by Agnes Moorehead at the age of 63. Elegant, sharp-tongued, and wonderfully impossible to impress, she turned every visit to Samantha's home into a magical battle of manners, pride, and motherly interference. Agnes Moorehead passed away in 1974 at the age of 73. Long before Bewitched, she had already earned respect in film and radio, with classic work in Citizen Kane and The Magnificent Ambersons, showing the dramatic power behind her comic brilliance. And Dora was funny because she never saw herself as the problem. With one raised eyebrow, one perfectly icy insult, or one spell aimed at poor Darren, she made the Stevens household feel deliciously unpredictable. Samantha Stevens was played by Elizabeth Montgomery at the age of 31. Warm, graceful, and quietly mischievous, Samantha made magic feel domestic. A twitch of the nose could fix dinner, stop chaos, or turn an ordinary suburban day upside down. Elizabeth Montgomery died in 1995 at the age of 62. After Bewitched, she deliberately moved beyond the sitcom image, taking on more serious television roles that showed a much wider dramatic range. Samantha remains special because she was never just a witch with powers. Elizabeth Montgomery made her kind, modern, funny, and independent. The woman trying to live a normal life, even when magic kept sneaking back in. Darren Stevens was played by Dick York at the age of 36. Nervous, decent, and constantly overwhelmed by the magic around him, Darren became the ordinary husband, trying very hard to keep a very extraordinary marriage normal. Dick York passed away in 1992 at the age of 63. Behind the laughs, his real life was marked by serious back pain that eventually forced him to leave the series, making his later story much more difficult than the cheerful world viewers saw on screen. Darren worked because his frustration felt human. Every spell, surprise visitor, and magical disaster pushed him closer to panic. But underneath it all was a husband who truly loved Samantha. Larry Tate was played by David White at the age of 48. Fast-talking, ambitious, and always worried about the next big client. Larry brought the pressure of the advertising world into Samantha and Darren's magical suburban life. David White died in 1990 at the age of 74. Away from McMahon and Tate, his life carried deep personal tragedy, including the loss of his son in the 1988 Lockerbie bombing. Larry was funny because business always came first, until magic quietly ruined the meeting. His polished confidence could disappear in seconds, giving the show some of its sharpest workplace comedy. Abner Kravitz was played by George Tobias at the age of 63. Dry, skeptical, and usually more interested in peace than panic, Abner became the perfect counterweight to Gladys and her endless suspicion of the Stevens house. George Tobias died in 1980 at the age of 78. Long before Bewitched, he had a busy career in film, often playing warm, memorable supporting characters with an easy, familiar presence. Abner's charm came from his refusal to overreact. While Gladys saw flying objects, strange lights, and impossible things next door, Abner usually preferred to read the paper and hope the whole thing went away. Darren Stevens was played by Dick Sargent at the age of 39. More composed, but still constantly tested by magic, his version of Darren carried the same impossible job, loving Samantha while trying to keep witchcraft out of everyday suburbia. Dick Sargent passed away in 1994 at the age of 64. Later in life, he became known not only for his acting, but also for speaking openly as a gay man, during a time when that visibility still carried real weight in Hollywood. His Darren stepped into a role audiences already knew, which was never easy, but the heart of the character remained the same. One ordinary man, trying to survive dinner parties, clients, and in-laws with magical powers. Gladys Kravitz was played by Sandra Gould at the age of 50. Nosy, dramatic, and forever convinced something strange was happening next door, she kept the Stevens household under comic surveillance. Sandra Gould passed away in 1999 at the age of 82. She took over the role after Alice Pearce and brought her own sharper, louder rhythm to Gladys, keeping the neighborhood suspicion alive for later seasons. Gladys was funny because, most of the time, she was actually right. The problem was that no one ever believed her, turning every scream for Abner into one of the show's best-running jokes. Louise Tate was played by Casey Rogers at the age of 40. Stylish, sociable, and often caught near Larry's business ambitions, Louise added a polished suburban presence to the world around Darren and Samantha. Casey Rogers died in 2006 at the age of 80. Before Bewitched, film fans may recognize her from Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, where she appeared under the name Laura Elliott. Louise gave the show another glimpse of ordinary adult life around all the magic. Cocktail parties, client dinners, and polite conversation always became more interesting when Samantha's secret was quietly waiting in the room. Gladys Kravitz was played by Alice Pearce at the age of 46. Nervy, curious, and always peeking out the window at exactly the wrong moment, she made the Stevens quiet street feel like a place where magic could never stay hidden for long. Alice Pearce passed away in 1966 at the age of 48. She won an Emmy for her work on Bewitched after her death, a bittersweet recognition of how much personality she brought to those early seasons. Her Gladys had a wonderfully frantic innocence. She was nosy, yes, but she was also the only neighbor who kept seeing the impossible and wondering why everyone else acted as if nothing had happened. Dr. Bombay was played by Bernard Fox at the age of 40. Eccentric, theatrical, and never quite as helpful as he thought he was, Dr. Bombay turned every magical emergency into something even more ridiculous. Bernard Fox passed away in 2016 at the age of 89. Many viewers also remember him from Hogan's Heroes, and later from Titanic, where his familiar face connected him to very different generations of television and film fans. Dr. Bombay brought a special kind of chaos to the show. Whenever Samantha called for help, his arrival usually meant the spell was about to get stranger before it got better. Phyllis Stevens was played by Mabel Albertson at the age of 63. Proper, suspicious, and never fully comfortable with the odd little things happening around Samantha, she brought classic mother-in-law tension from Darren's side of the family. Mabel Albertson passed away in 1982 at the age of 81. Classic TV fans may also know her from The Andy Griffith Show and That Girl, where her polished comic timing made her a familiar face in 1960s television. Phyllis worked because she gave Samantha a very different kind of pressure than Endora did. One mother-in-law used magic, the other used manners, and somehow both made Darren's life harder. Aunt Clara was played by Marion Lorne at the age of 81. Sweet, forgetful, and always arriving with the best intentions, she made magic feel less dangerous, and more like a beloved relative accidentally turning the house upside down. Marion Lorne passed away in 1968, at the age of 84. Her performance as Aunt Clara earned her an Emmy after her death, a touching tribute to a character who brought such gentle charm to the series. Aunt Clara's spells rarely went as planned, but that was exactly why fans loved her. Every misplaced doorknob, confused incantation, and apologetic smile made her one of the show's most endearing magical visitors. Drunk was played by Dick Wilson at the age of 48. Brief, comic, and perfectly suited to the show's light touch, his appearance added another small moment of confusion to a world where strange things could happen in plain sight. Dick Wilson passed away in 2007 at the age of 91. Many viewers knew him best as Mr. Whipple from the famous Charmin commercials, a role that made his face and voice familiar across American television for decades. Even a small role could work beautifully in Bewitched. When magic was part of everyday life, the funniest reactions often came from ordinary people who had no idea what they had just witnessed. Esmeralda was played by Alice Ghostley at the age of 42. Nervous, shy, and magically unreliable, she brought a softer kind of chaos to the Stevens home whenever her spells went wrong. Alice Ghostley passed away in 2007 at the age of 81. Later generations also remember her from Designing Women, where her distinctive voice and fragile comic timing found a whole new audience. Esmeralda was funny because she never meant to cause trouble. Her timid entrances, disappearing acts, and accidental magic gave the show a sweet, fluttery energy that felt completely different from Endora's confidence. Louise Tate was played by Irene Vernon at the age of 42. Elegant, polite, and perfectly at home in the social world of advertising dinners and suburban gatherings, she helped shape the early version of Larry Tate's household. Irene Vernon passed away in 1998 at the age of 76. Before Casey Rogers took over the role, Vernon gave Louise a calm, refined presence that fit naturally beside Larry's business-minded energy. Her Louise belonged to the show's early rhythm, when Samantha's magic was still colliding with the polished world of dinner parties, clients, and polite conversation. She helped make that ordinary world feel real enough for the magic to disrupt. Maurice was played by Maurice Evans at the age of 63. Grand, theatrical, and gloriously unimpressed with mortal life, he made Samantha's father feel like a magical aristocrat who expected the world to rise to his standards. Maurice Evans passed away in 1989 at the age of 87. Long before his sitcom appearances, he was a celebrated Shakespearean actor, and that classical stage presence gave Maurice his wonderfully dramatic authority. Maurice brought a different flavor of magic from Endora. Where she was sharp and meddling, he was regal, wounded, and impossible to ignore, turning every family visit into a supernatural performance. Uncle Arthur was played by Paul Lynde at the age of 39. Wickedly playful, sarcastic, and always arriving with a joke or a trick, he gave the Stevens household some of its most mischievous magical chaos. Paul Lynde passed away in 1982 at the age of 55. His unmistakable voice and cutting comic timing later made him a television favorite on Hollywood squares, where his personality became almost as famous as his roles. Uncle Arthur felt like magic with a punchline. He did not just cast spells, he teased, provoked, and walked away smiling, while everyone else tried to clean up the mess. Mrs. Grange was played by Sarah Seager at the age of 50. Proper, watchful, and touched with classic sitcom fussiness, she fit neatly into the suburban world Samantha was always trying to keep normal. Sarah Seager passed away in 1990 at the age of 76. She also appeared on The Andy Griffith Show, where her sharp but warm comic presence made her a familiar face to fans of 1960s television. Mrs. Grange added to the everyday world that made Samantha's magic so funny. The more ordinary the visitor, the more dangerous a little nose twitch could become. Mr. Benson was played by J. Edward McKinley at the age of 47. Serious, businesslike, and perfectly suited to Darren's professional world, he brought another dose of straight-faced pressure to the show's magical misunderstandings. J. Edward McKinley passed away in 2004 at the age of 86. Classic TV viewers may recognize him from The Dick Van Dyke Show and many other guest roles where he often played polished men in suits with authority. Mr. Benson worked because the Stevens world always became funnier when business met witchcraft. A simple meeting, a serious client, or one formal conversation could fall apart the moment magic slipped into the room. Betty was played by Jill Foster at the age of 29. Bright, casual, and part of the ordinary social circle around Samantha and Darren, she helped make the neighborhood feel lively before magic quietly interrupted everything. Jill Foster passed away in 2017 at the age of 86. She appeared in multiple episodes as Betty, Darren's secretary, giving the advertising office a familiar everyday presence beside all the magical chaos at home. Betty's scenes worked because Bewitched was funniest when normal life stayed just close enough to be disrupted. A simple office moment or polite conversation could suddenly feel very fragile once Samantha's secret world was nearby. Apothecary was played by Bernie Coppell at the age of 31. Strange, theatrical, and perfectly at home in the magical side of Samantha's family, he added a quirky old-world flavor to the show's witchcraft comedy. Currently 92, Bernie Coppell remains one of the few living names from this part of the cast. Many viewers later knew him best as Dr. Adam Bricker on The Love Boat, where his smooth comic charm reached a whole new generation. Every spell, potion, and odd visitor reminded viewers that Samantha's normal suburban life was never really normal at all. Tabitha Stevens was played by Erin Murphy at the age of 2. Sweet, tiny, and already touched by magic, Tabitha brought a new kind of family charm to the Stevens household. Today, at 62, Erin Murphy remains warmly connected to the series and its fans. After growing up on television, she later appeared in interviews, reunion specials, and public events celebrating the legacy of Bewitched. Tabitha made the magic feel even more personal. She was not just another spell in the house. She was Samantha and Darren's daughter, a little reminder that their unusual family was growing in the most magical way possible. The magic may have faded from Samantha's living room, but Bewitched still holds a special place in classic TV history. Some cast members lived long and unforgettable lives, while many beloved faces are sadly gone today. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more classic cast then and now stories.